Chapter 13, Getting Your Career Off to a Winning Start. I believe that the only difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is extraordinary determination. If you see someone enjoying a career that you would like to pursue, ask yourself, what has he or she got that I can't have fixed? In other words, how can I do it too? I believe that any woman can build a successful career if she has determination and willingness to work at self-improvement. If you aren't happy with yourself, climb back on God's easel. He's not through with you yet. Don't forget that although I was a young woman when I first entered my career, I retired before founding Mary Kay Cosmetics. So if you're not satisfied with your status quo, it's never too late. It took God a long time to get me ready for the role that He had for me. A career is something much more than a job. It implies a level of commitment, responsibility, and involvement that goes far beyond spending your time and drawing your pay. As you mature beyond the idea of a mere job and approach your work as a career, there are many things for you to consider. Not the least of these is the path you will travel to reach your long-term goals. You may want to risk investing money and time in an independent business venture, or you may want to have the security of an ever-growing salaried position. In either case, it is essential that you know how to present yourself and your abilities. Remember, whether you're approaching a prospective employer or seeking financial backing for your own business, it's your job to sell yourself. There are thousands of other people competing within any profession, but you can give yourself an edge by thinking about what you have to offer. So many people approach a new career by asking, what can this do for me? Instead of, what can I do to make myself and my services invaluable? What unmet need can I fulfill? Sometimes this attitude can mean the difference between success and failure. Your first task is to honestly evaluate the skills you already possess. Take an inventory of yourself. What are your assets? What do you do well? What do you really want to do? Not just for the moment, but for an entire career. What kind of career will bring out your own natural enthusiasm? Put these evaluations down in black and white, because until you actually commit them to writing, you may be fuzzy about those things you can actually do. On paper, your abilities become very clear. Don't forget abstract qualities. For example, you may list traits such as, I'm attractive, I like working with people, I'm outgoing, I'm energetic, I'm determined. Once this task is complete, I'm certain that you will discover that you are a very special person. Your list will also identify areas in which you can improve. These may include furthering your education, organizing your family responsibilities, or developing some other personal skill. Remember that the truly successful career is built upon 3 requirements. First, you must have a desire to succeed, or as I call it, the want-to spirit. Second, you must have the know-how. Knowledge is power. It builds enthusiasm, and enthusiasm builds success. But neither desire nor knowledge is enough. The third requirement is that you also apply yourself. You can want to succeed with all your heart. You may learn everything that there is to know about your career. But unless you are willing to apply these skills, in other words, to work hard, all of your efforts will be wasted. Perhaps you will apply your skills to the development of your own business. Perhaps you will decide to become an entrepreneur. Every entrepreneur I have ever met has been an incurable optimist. My favorite definition of optimist is that person who, when given a barn full of manure, runs through it shouting, I know there's a pony in there somewhere. Financial analysts tell us that by the end of the century, the greatest area of economic growth will be in the creation of small independent businesses, such as those developed by Mary Kay Consultants. One primary reason for such growth is a worldwide trend towards streamlined management systems. More and more companies are consolidating jobs and thus reducing the number of middle management positions. More than anything else, the explosion of knowledge has contributed to this change. A department head with a large corporation can now plug into his or her computer and retrieve the information once compiled by dozens of clerks. This creates a squeeze on a very large pool of talented and experienced individuals. And what can a displaced middle manager do? Often, the answer is to start his or her own small business. A small business can also be an ideal situation for people currently working in an economically depressed field. people changing careers, or people wishing to enter work with friends or family members. The focus of such a business could be anything from small manufacturing facilities, such as a cottage industry, to a professional service provider, such as a physician or attorney. Not every entrepreneur plans to develop an international conglomerate. Some are simply independent persons who wish to support their families while practicing an art or a trade. But while the distinctions are many, there are also some similarities. And unfortunately, the greatest is that most of these new businesses will fail. The reason for failure are varied as the people that are involved, but a common problem is undercapitalization. I think it's important to note that while we began Mary Kay Cosmetics with $5,000 in capital, it would take much more than that now. Even so, it obviously takes more than money to succeed. Product and market knowledge are essential because you really must build a better mousetrap if the world is to be the path to your door. You must determine which product and services are not being skillfully applied and marketable in the marketplace. Your ability to judge and market and your place in it can be hampered by emotion. In fact, for many people, the only reason for entering business is emotional. But simply wanting to start a business is not good enough reason. A woman may love decorating her own home, so she thinks, I want to open an interior design shop. But she must consider whether or not the community already has enough skilled, well-established decorators. Before trying to begin a new business, you should carefully analyze your own strengths and weaknesses. For example, what is your level of training or business education? Many women want to enter glamorous professions such as fashion, even though they have little or no experience in this field. You might consider taking a part-time or temporary job in your chosen field. That way you can gain some real insights into the kinds of skills you will need to bring to your new career. Women have many talents that they may have never thought of as a career opportunity. If you wish to start your own business, begin by asking yourself what you really do well. What makes people say to you, if you ever decide to go into business, you should take up ... Some of the most successful new businesses were started by women working out of their homes, using their special talents. I know of a woman who had a fruitcake recipe passed down from her great-grandmother. She began her enterprise by selling a few homemade fruitcakes at Christmas time, and it's now grown into a huge industry, selling thousands of fruitcakes and employing hundreds of workers. You may know of her company as Mary of Puddin Hill. As with many successful cottage industries, she still maintains those qualities, such as hand mixing, that ensure her original success. I have witnessed numerous such examples. A woman who developed a large drapery and upholstery company from her work as a neighborhood seamstress, and one who created a successful infant shop after making baby clothes for her grandchildren. Still another woman began designing maternity clothes after she became pregnant and could not find a suitable wardrobe. If you decide to become an entrepreneur, you must also be willing to work harder than you would ever work in an ordinary job. A woman who starts her own company or becomes an independent saleswoman is her own boss. If she is going to succeed, she has to work for the most exacting boss in the world, herself. I often tell our consultants, you must discipline yourself to work as if you had a boss standing over you. This means that you must set aside exact hours to work every single day. Ask yourself, how many hours can I spend on my work? Once you have made the decision, you must stick to those hours, no matter what. Early in my sales career, I decided that at 8:30 every morning, I would begin work on something that had to do with my job. Then I would spend my day as if I were supervising someone else. For example, when I calculated the value of time on straight commission, I recognized that I couldn't afford to stop for coffee breaks half a dozen times a day. You too will need to be a strict boss if you want to avoid failure. But enough talk of failure. You want to know about success, right? While a new business can fail for many reasons, success is usually linked to one vital factor: the ability to satisfy unmet needs. When we began Mary Kay Cosmetics, no other company was actually teaching women how to care for their skin. All of the other cosmetic companies were merely selling rouge, lipstick, and new eye colors. So we entered the market ready to fulfill a real need. We knew that we could help a woman understand why she would take care of her skin and how this could be easily accomplished. One woman who identified such a need and fulfilled it was Betty Graham. She was a secretary who knew that there had to be a better way to correct typing errors. So she experimented in her kitchen until she came up with a formula for liquid paper. Before she died, her company was sold for more than $40 million. One of my favorite success stories concerns the late Mary Crowley, my longtime friend and owner of Home Interior and Gifts. Mary and I each had a profound influence on each other's careers. I especially enjoyed telling how she founded one of the country's most successful direct sales organizations. I met Mary in the early 1940s when I was at Stanley Home Products. It was a bitterly cold night when the streets were sheeted with ice and the radio stations were warning people not to leave their homes. But I had a Stanley party scheduled, and I was very conscientious. If I had a party booked, I went, ice or not. Well, Mary Crowley was very conscientious too. She was the only person to show up. As the Sunday school teacher of the hostess children, she felt an obligation to keep her commitment, and so nothing, not even the terrible weather, could stop Mary. I quickly realized there was no point in trying to put on the sales demonstration for her and the hostess, so I decided just to enjoy the cake, coffee, and good company. Both women were lovely people. Mary was an especially exciting person. She really had charisma. As we talked, I discovered that she had worked as an assistant to the president of the purse manufacturing company. This was before the freeways had been built in Dallas, and getting downtown every day was a real problem. I mentioned to her that I was able to arrange my work days so as to avoid rush hour traffic, and that seemed to impress her. Like me, she had young children, and in fact, the fact that I could be home by 4 o'clock in the afternoon was so interesting to her. After we were better acquainted, I asked her how much she earned as an assistant to the president. She looked at me as if it were really none of my business, and it wasn't, and replied, I make $66 a week. In those days, that was a lot of money. I said, well, I do too. In a bad week, that really impressed her. But when I offered her a job at Stanley Dealer, she refused. I told her, you would be fantastic in sales, and I think you're wasting your time behind a desk. If you ever change your mind, call me. I didn't hear from her for more than a month. And then one day, she phoned to tell me that her husband had been called up for reserve duty in the National Guard. I'm going to be home alone for 3 months, she said. Do you think I could sell Stanley part-time? Usually I had little interest in part-timers, but remembering Mary's wonderful personality, I consented. The first party she observed was a disaster. I made a total of $4, but this didn't discourage her. Before long, she had become a Stanley dealer, and she was terrific. After a few months, she called and told me that she would be at the Monday morning sales meeting. She had resigned from her job and was going to sell Stanley full-time. That was the beginning of something wonderful for me, because with her assistance, my unit soared. Later, when I moved to St. Louis, Mary had done such a fantastic job that Stanley allowed her to take over my Dallas unit. She continued to earn tremendous commissions until she left to accept a position as a sales manager for a fledgling young company, World Gift. A year later, we were moving back to Texas, and I stopped off for a visit with Mary. She took me to a World Gift show. Only this time, she recruited me. I took a World Gift demonstration case, and within a year, my unit was doing a major portion of the company's total business. Meanwhile, Mary left to create Home Interiors and Gifts, her own multi-million-dollar success story. Mary continued to influence my life for many years, but perhaps the most significant event was when she introduced me to Mel Ash. Mel was the wholesale gift business and was making a call on Mary's office. As he invited Mary, her husband, Dave, out to dinner, Mel asked, "Do you know anybody else like you?" Mary answered, "As a matter of fact, I do." Then she picked up the phone and called me. I was a bit reluctant, but I agreed to join them for dinner the next evening. A few minutes before our dinner engagement, Mary called to tell me that something unexpected had come up and that she and Dave couldn't make it. I suspected she was playing Cupid, but I agreed to go. And I never regretted it for a moment. Isn't it wonderful how once in a while someone crosses your path and turns out to have such a dramatic influence upon your life? And to think that if Mary and I had not ventured out into that bitter cold night, we might never have met. I believe that Mary is a wonderful example of how a woman uses her talents and can succeed at anything she sets her mind to. First, she was an excellent assistant to the president of her company, then a top salesperson, and later an outstanding sales manager. Eventually, when she had developed the necessary skills and recognized an unmet need, Mary began a small business that grew into a large, successful company. As you begin a new career, remember that whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, and sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon, must inevitably come to pass.